you have a hymnal, would you pull that out, please? If you don't have one, let me know. We've got some extras floating around up front. There's some extras down in the music room too, so we can get everybody squared away.
I'll get yours.
Does anybody need a hymnal?
They're gonna be way back
Jenny, do you need
All
a
right,
hymnal?
everybody stand up. Thank you. Yeah, share with somebody if they're not German. All right, so the hymn number is 247. Everybody should be pretty familiar with this. And so we're going to do this pretty fast country church style. We're going to go through all the verses because this song has a journey in it. So pay attention to it as we sing it. Carry it along. If you can't sing, I don't care. Nobody can hear you in the sea of voices. You won't even be able to hear me. So 247.
You may be seated. It's my privilege to introduce our speaker for Mission Week, Brother Glenn Moore. Now, Brother Moore has devoted his life and ministry to strengthening and renewing the local church with a particular focus on church revitalization, helping congregations rediscover their mission, renew their health, and re-engage their communities for the sake of the gospel. He serves faithfully as on pastoral staff at Lifeway Church in Cuero, Texas. He stepped out in faith to plant a church in that town, Cuero, I don't know how many years ago. 27 years ago. An experience that reflects both his heart for people and his commitment to gospel work in the field. We're especially grateful to have him here at Texas Baptist Institute. It is his alma mater. He once sat in the seats that you're sitting in, and he has that whole experience that you're experiencing. As an alumnus, his life and ministry stand as a testimony to what God can do through those who are willing to serve. Brother Moore is also continuing to grow as he is pursuing his doctoral degree. So let's bow our heads and ask the Lord's blessing on Missions Week and on Brother Moore as he comes to speak to us. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the privilege of gathering together during this Missions Week. Thank you for the gospel that has reached us and for the privilege to carry it to those who are lost and undone. Lord, we thank you for your servant, Brother Moore. We ask that you would fill him with your Spirit, guide his words, and speak through him with clarity, conviction, and grace. Prepare our hearts to receive what you have for us. Give us ears to hear, minds to understand, and hearts ready to obey. Burden us for the lost. Strengthen our faith and align us with your mission. May everything said and done here today bring honor and glory to you, for we ask it in your precious Son's name. Amen.
I paid for?
Got a portion of it from his parole officer.
Yeah. My probation officer did give me permission to travel, just making sure we're clear on that. What I would like to do is, what I would like to focus on this 3 days worth, we're going to talk about church planting, particularly in Texas, okay? Today and tomorrow, and then the third day we will talk about revitalization and revitalizing churches. And I am amazed at the pushback I get. Most people fall in one camp or the other. Plant church, revitalize. I think I'm going to be able to demonstrate to you why we must do both. Okay? I want to start off with sharing with you, and all I have to say is that we need to plant where we can reinforce. Okay? What I'm going to share with you has never been done in the state of Texas. It has never been done anywhere by any group or mission organization. So that means that it leaves a lot to be questioned. I expect a lot of questions, okay? And over dinner tonight that you buy me, we'll answer all of those questions. But this part one, I just wanted to lay some foundation. And I'm going to tell you right now, the talk tomorrow is going to be more riveting than the talk today. Today is methodology, laying a foundation. Tomorrow is how do we execute it. Okay? But in the rapidly changing landscape, it requires new and different methods. Okay? What is the definition of insanity? Somebody quickly? Do the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Okay? All right. 15 years ago, on Google, you could have typed in church planting, and there would have been 244,000 entries. Today, there are over 3 million entries on church planting, which also means there's a lot of noise and static mixed in with some of that stuff today's. Studies show that if a denomination wishes to reach more people, listen to this statistic, the number of new churches that it begins each year must be equal to 3% of its total churches. Let me say it again. If we want to be successful at church planting, then the ABA nationwide must plant every year 3% of its total churches. For the sake of math and nobody needing to take off their shoes, let's say there were 10,000 ABA churches. How many churches would we need to start each year? A year. 300 a year. Does anybody see where we might have a problem with that? On a per capita basis, new churches win more people to Christ than established churches. I know that might hurt to hear, but this is the truth. New churches reach more lost people with the gospel than established churches. We can debate and talk about why, but the main reason is that a new church plant has got only one goal and one focus: reach the lost. And in a church that's been established for 25 years, they mostly have one goal: keep the members safe, happy, and off the pastor's back. That means that we will debate for hours the color of carpet. And do we really theologically have a foundation for taking the pews out and putting chairs in? The newer the congregation, the more effective the church is at reaching the lost. The most effective method for evangelism today in North America is church planting. May not be what you showed up to hear, but these are the facts, okay? So very quickly, church planting versus revitalization. Listen, saving dead and dying churches is the most difficult and expensive thing that any church, organization, or individual can do. Changing a rigid, traditionally bound congregation is more intensive than planting a new church. But we must do both. Both share most of the attributes and use the same methodology, mentality, and the goals. If you'd like a copy of my PowerPoint with notes, I'll make it available if you would like it. I talk to so many people that are in revitalization, and they say revitalization is the way to go, church planting, boo. People that are church planters go revitalization, boo. Listen, if we don't revitalize unhealthy churches and make them healthy, then we don't have healthy churches to start healthy churches. And statistically, there's not enough healthy churches to start enough healthy church plants to even stay 50% below what we need to be doing. So, we need a strategy to revitalize established churches to become healthy sending churches so that we can plant new kinds of churches. Unhealthy churches should not be in the church planting business. Hard to hear? It's the truth. An unhealthy church that is not active in the Great Commission has two parts. What are they? Starts with E, ends with evangelism, right? What is it? Evangelism, good, batting 50%. And what? Discipleship. A healthy church is actively pursuing, not preaching about it, not teaching about it, but they're doing evangelism and they're doing discipleship. How do we know? Because it shows. You can see it in the members and you can see it in the number of baptisms they're doing. And how do they follow those whom they baptize? We'll talk more later. But an unhealthy church should not be planting churches. An unhealthy church should not be sending out missionaries. I want to get that out of the way first so you'd get it out of your system so by the time we get to questions you won't be so upset with me. I worked for a group as a nurse and a paramedic and a PA. I worked 11 years with research cardiologists and interventionist cardiologists doing research and surgery. And I remember watching one of my doctors talk to a very large, unhealthy man. He smoked and he drank and he was about 100 pounds overweight. And I said, why didn't you recommend lifestyle changes to him? He said, because he won't do them. Why did you put him on these medications when lifestyle change, he wouldn't need these medications? He said 2 reasons. Number 1, he won't do it. Number 2, if I don't put him on the medication, when he dies of a stroke or heart attack, his family will sue me. Let me share this with you. 9 out of 10 unhealthy people were told to change or die. They were told things like stop smoking, lose weight, quit drinking, start exercising. 9 out of 10 chose to die rather than to change. I know what you're thinking. He's about to link that up to churches. Bingo. Y'all follow very closely. Most churches are similar. They choose their traditions over their future. It's more important to preserve our traditions. I didn't say doctrine. Didn't say theology. I said traditions. By the time you're a second-year student, you should start seeing something form in your brain. There's a lot of things that go on in the name of Jesus that are really traditions that you can't find in the Scriptures. But trust me, if you don't do it or if you stop doing it, you'd better have 1-800-U-Haul on standby on your phone. We must both revitalize and plant new kinds of churches. I want to share a model and a method with you, not used in the MBA of Texas. I theorized it. I have been theorizing it, and the leadership of our church has refined it, and we've built a system around it. I believe that now is the time to launch this in the state of Texas as a model for other churches to adapt and to use this to plant healthy churches. So what kind of church planting produces healthy, sustainable churches? Is sending enough or strengthening continue after the launch? We have a problem. And then what we do is, a man will come with a vision to go on the mission field. He'll share that with a church that has enough money, and they say, great, we're going to send you. And then what it turns out to be, in most cases, not yours, I know your church is very different. Yours is the only one doing it right. But in most churches, what happens is the church sends the missionary a check once a month, and the missionary sends a report to the church once a month. There it is, a thumbnail of the missionary and his family on a report on the bulletin board in the fellowship hall right outside the men's room. And if it's a very spiritual church, they'll actually read the entire report during the monthly business meeting and praise themselves for doing the Lord's work. So is sending enough, or must we strengthen after we launch? How should a planter be formed before he is sent? There we go. Okay. So in other words, what kind of support? What model best protects doctrine, culture, and long-term health? Here's the thing. We need to be able to plant where we can reinforce, where we can help and assist. And what we're going to do in this session this morning, we're going to talk about emphasizing sustainability more than just initiation. It's more than just planting the church. It's, can we plant a sustainable church? Can church planting, it's got to be not evaluated not only by how many churches we start, but how we strengthen them to endure over time. And that's planning, prayer, and preparation. So let's talk about church survival rates. Vision is often stronger than structure. The vision to do the work is often stronger than the structure that goes into it. Are y'all seeing everything on there? Okay, good. All right. And so, planters may be sent with limited long-term reinforcement. Hey, we're going to pray for you. We're going to send you, and we're going to send you a check. May the Lord be with you. I'm not saying that happens all the times, but in most of the times, that is what happens. Distance weakens your ability to coach, hold them accountable, and care for them. The further they are away, the harder it is for the sending church to actually support them, be there on the field. I have heard stories, I know it doesn't happen in your church, but I have heard stories where the missionary has said, when is your sending pastor? When was the last time he visited? A year, 2 years, 3. And they're lucky if they get the pastor, much less any other staff members or any other leaders from the sending church. And if those of you that have been to MTM, how many of y'all have gone to at least one or two of those? Don't they talk a lot about sustaining the missionary, your mental health, dealing with depression, family isolation? All be eliminated if you adopted something like this. The plant is launched within a practical reach, and reinforcements remain active after the church. So in other words, the planter families can face preventable isolation. The issue is not sending itself, but sending without durable strengthening. Okay? Is it moving? There we go. Quickly, you've seen, there's two sets of figures out there. I want to quickly dispel both of them. Church plant survival rates. At year 2, 90% are still in business. At year 3, between 80, 87%. Some of the models there's another model that says 68%. It's based on inaccurate, incomplete data. Year 4, as of 2023, 86.6% of church plants are still in operation. I'm not telling you those plants are functioning well, financially stable, theologically based. The doors are still open. Year 5, longitudinal studies indicate that if a plant is not self-sufficient by year 4 or 5, it is highly unlikely to become so. Wow. Our practice is, 10, 15 years? I heard a missionary proudly exclaiming, in 7 years, we've baptized 5 people. Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. Among church missionologists and church planting community, years 3 to 5 is what's known as the graveyard. The graveyard. That's when most churches fail. That's when plants fail. And the financial status, just very quickly. 33% are self-sufficient and thriving and independent by 3 years because they were started by a healthy church with a healthy budget and the right kind of staffing and training before they ever went on the field. Another 33 exist, but they're not self-supporting, and they rely on existing funding for at least 10 or more years after that. Another 31% will never reach fully financial stability, ever, ever, ever. Plants that undergo formal assessment, training, and a network of support can exceed 90% after 4 years. Higher launch funding correlates with higher initial attendance and growth. Quickly. Research tells us that if a church invests $322,000, within 5 years, that church can be funded for about 500 people and growing. On the other end, a church that invests $70,000 at the end of 5 years may see 50 or less people. Simple math, you don't need to take your shoes off. What if 5 churches in that lower bracket all got together? Financially, it looks as though they could support 250, but if 5 churches all got together, trained, supported, and etc., like I'm going to lay out to you, they too could be reaching over 500. Because if we build healthy churches, then we've already trained them how to multiply to become another healthy church. Proximity, we're going to discuss that. Proximity is not simply logistical, but it's theological and missionological. The New Testament pattern suggests that how churches are sent directly shapes how they are sustained, revealed in a deeper ecclesiastical responsibility, and their sending practices. And so, what I'm going to propose to you today is this. Here's what I'm not claiming. I am not claiming that regional multiplication needs structure, okay? The argument does claim this. We need structure. We need the planter formation. The planter must be formed before being embedded somewhere. And that proximity improves sustainability. The closer the plant is to the mother church, the easier it is to sustain them and to help them and to work with them. Does that mean you can't start a mission in Zimbabwe? No, it's just going to be more expensive and it's going to be much more difficult and the probability of its success is much lower. Okay? But what I'm not claiming is that we should stop doing what we label frontier missions. That's when a church plants a church more than 200, 300, 400, 500 miles away. Church in Illinois starts a church in Texas. Church in Texas starts a church in Illinois. They have the logistics to beat right off the bat. Okay? So church planting begins with churches. Okay? If we look at some of these examples from Acts chapter 13, and particularly Acts chapter 14, Antioch sends from within their worshiping church. So sending is not only ecclesiastical, but it's not entrepreneurial, it's more theologically based. The planter is recognized, formed, and commissioned within the sending church. So his theology is strong. His methodology, impeccable. He learns the systems of a healthy church. And then he goes and replicates it. If you travel to a McDonald's, crude illustration. Don't mean to offend your theology. But if you go to a McDonald's anywhere in Texas, the menu is the same, the smell is the same, the product is the same. You can expect to have the same experience, right? Shouldn't we take healthy churches and they plant healthy churches so that it is predictable what the outcomes would be? If we train a church planter of what a healthy church looks like and they're on staff for 9 months to a year, they know what healthy is. They know what healthy looks like. They know what to do to be healthy. So when you send them onto the field, there's no guesswork. It's already there. They know what to do and they know how to do it. The New Testament pattern includes strengthening. Churches are not merely started, but we see them strengthened. Apostolic ministry includes revisiting, appointing elders and leaders and confirming. Acts chapter 14, verse 21 through 23. What did they do in Acts chapter? The sending church. As they started churches, they went back and revisited, re-strengthened, set up leaders and elders within those churches, commissioned them, trained them, stayed with them before they went somewhere else. This is a biblical model. We're not reinventing the wheel with this. Launching is not the end of sending. So if you see at the bottom of the screen, so we send, we revisit, we strengthen, we appoint, and we establish. Churches reproduce more than doctrinal statements. Pastoral habits, ministry culture, discipleship rhythm, leader instincts, and worship practices. What that young church planter receives at the send of, that takes a lot of guesswork out. Healthy churches have a DNA. Every church has a DNA. But a healthy church's DNA is absorbed by immersion, not being explained away in theory. You can't just talk about it. I believe you need to be immersed in it. Most of us don't do well with theory. Most of us are visual learners. Over 80% of the people in this room, statistically, right? So I could tell you about it, you could read it, and that's one thing. But if I show it to you and you read it, and then you and I go and do it, and I go, see? You're like, that makes sense. I can do this. The planter should be formed before he is released. Before he is released. The planter should know the church from the inside out. He should have already internalized the theology, methodology, and the pastoral tone looking. Embedded formation reduces drift. Missionaries that drift theologically over time, they're so far removed from the sending church that saying there's a great error within the church, and the sending church, like, we didn't even know anything about it. And by that time, what the literature repeatedly emphasizes is this. All the research is intentional mission, ecclesial accountability, healthy systems, sustainability, and then multiplication. Too many times, top of this list when it ought to be the last thing on the list. Remember, Jesus didn't tell us to add, He told us to multiply. And a disciples that makes disciples, and a church that makes churches. So then those two churches, and those three start a fourth and a fifth and a sixth. Okay? Why long is often incomplete. A common pattern: identify a planner, give short-term preparation, send them far away, and expect quick autonomy. If you've never been a church planter, you have no idea what it's like to be on the field all alone, lonely, working a secular job to pay your way, and then doing the Lord's heavy lifting on Sundays. Common risk: isolation, weak reinforcement, thin volunteer base, and an inconsistent system. Imagine if you went to a healthy church where you were embedded in the staff. You were on staff. You were teaching. You were preaching. For example, you have a greeters ministry at your church where you have actually built curriculum on how to train greeters. Why do we need them? What do they do? How do they become a blessing? Did you know within 4 minutes most people start deciding whether they're going to come back to your church again or not? They haven't heard your fabulous preaching yet. They haven't heard the glorious choir or your vocalist. They start making that decision when they get out of the car. Who's the first person they see? Hopefully a smiling face, not some grumpy bear. Okay? So we designed a system for greeters. I designed the training for how do we train greeters. Now I've added to it and perfected it over 27 years. But now we have a manual. And we have a ministry, a lay leader in that ministry that trains every volunteer. Imagine if you were a church planter and you came and you had to go through the volunteer training and then you had to work as a greeter. And then at subsequent trainings, you help that leader do the training. And then eventually, you do all the training. You know greeting inside and out. So when you start a plant, you emphatically know how to train greeters because it's not theological. It's not just a method. You've seen it work and you've seen it be a blessing. You believe it. Now take every system within the church, take every ministry within the church, and you train them on every one of those. And then when you send them, you're in proximity to the sending church. I call it the mothership among non-theologians. And what do? Now the sending church gets 3 to 5 families that commit to every quarter or every 6 months to being on the mission field with them. You're going to send to the church planter. You're going to send him someone trained in security, somebody trained in greeting, someone trained in children's ministry, someone trained in nursery ministry, somebody trained in small groups. On service number 1, they already have a complete system there, people that they've already worked with for a year. Not only that, but now you're going to have pastors from the church, the sending church, come and assist and pray with him. Be there on Sunday morning, not to watch them, not to ridicule them, but to know that somebody is there that cares about them. What if we utilize technology and we had at each, the sending church and the church plant, what if we had a Zoom meeting on Sunday morning? And this congregation could see that congregation. And we could pray for one another. We could lift each other up. That's a little more than that report outside the men's room in the fellowship hall, isn't it? I would encourage missionaries today to start doing that. Send a video at the very least. We take our kids and we'll tell them about a missionary, where they're at and what they're doing, come up with some questions, and then we let those kids ask questions live when I can get that missionary to Zoom with me in front of the whole church. They see his face, they hear his voice, they know his heart. This is the park that I'll be witnessing to people today while y'all are at church. Keep me in your prayers. I think that's a little better than a report printed on the back wall. Common risk, the traditional way, is isolation, weak reinforcement, thin volunteer base, and inconsistent systems. Now let's talk about embedded sending. The older pattern was train near, send far, support lightly. The EPSM, I'm sorry, but for my name, I'm calling it, so I had to give it a very pretentious name that would make it sound scholarly. If y'all want to help me change it, we can. But the EPSM pattern is form deeply, launch strategically, reinforce consistently. This is why I'm telling you that this has never been done in the state of Texas before. The embedded proximity sending model sounds pretentious. If whoever helps me come up with a better name, buy you chicken fried steak, okay? So the planter is formed inside the sending church. The plant is launched within practical reach, we say within 1 hour of the building, okay? Reinforcement continues after launch. Actually, there's more manpower, eyeballs, and calloused hands after launch than before. It's ongoing. And the goal is healthy maturity and future multiplication. Why would Lifeway plant Lifeway number 2? Lifeway number 1 and 2 can plant Lifeway number 3. Now we've got 2 churches that are healthy that are planting a 3rd church. What happens after 3 to 5 years for that 3rd church? Now all of us are going to launch 2 more locations and send our people to them. We already have a couple of families that when we make our final decision on where we're going, one of the 3 locations, one of them already ready to move and the other one goes, would you be mad if we left? I'm like, not if you're going there. Not if you're going there. And here's how it works. Embed the planner, form their doctrine and DNA while they're on staff at the church, the sending church. Transfer systems, they learn every system that we use and that we develop. Select a reachable field within 1 hour. Launch with a support range. Don't launch outside of the support range. Okay? And then lastly, reinforce it until local leadership matures. Let's say that there is a woman there that has a heart for children's ministry, leading children's ministry. I want you to know this. Right now, the fastest way to grow a church with young families is a children's director, a children's leader, whatever you want to call it. I would put one of them on staff before I hired somebody to lead music or anything else. A children's leader. She has a passion. She's been working at the church plant for a couple of months. She feels God leading her to do this. Well, she's going to drive an hour for a few weeks and she's going to learn reproducibly. So then she is equipped now to go back. Now we don't have the church planter training individual lay leaders within the church. The sending church is responsible for the majority of the training. That was my timer. So proximity extends beyond day 1 of launch. Proximity allows pastoral presence, coaching, rotation, family support, system transfer, and faster troubleshooting. You know, at MTM, y'all spend hours talking about how to avoid depression and how to avoid feeling isolated. And as a church planter, how you keep your family from feeling isolated. What if you learn that on the job for an entire year and you know you're going to go and work with a sending church that is going to protect the unity of your family on a daily basis? We're going to help you protect your family. No, God did not call anyone to sacrifice his family on the altar of ministry. And if you have to sacrifice your family to do ministry, you're not doing something right. Temporary reinforcement can stabilize children's ministry, hospitality, worship. Borrowed strength can also help you reach local stability. A couple of these. How it avoids over-control. It must include clear support phases that the planter understands. Leadership milestones. Here's where we want you to be in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, in a year. On leadership. Not on attendance, but on you developing yourself. Why is it important for us to develop that church planter so strongly? Because in 3 to 5 years, he's going to be instrumental in helping us start another work. Reproduction, multiplication. The goal is reinforcement, not control. Sending churches should ask these questions. Whom are we forming now? What DNA do we have that's reproducible? What support can we actually sustain? And where can we reinforce after launch? Before a church decides to become a sending church, every one of these questions and more need to be answered. And they need to be answered succinctly with biblical grounding. Okay? You would not let a first-year medical student do heart surgery. No matter, what if a young man says, I have a desire to be a famous heart surgeon. I desire. I feel the Lord wants me to. Would you put him in the operating room theater on your mama or daddy? No, you're laughing about that. But we do that with missionaries today. I have a desire. God gave me a desire. Well, have you developed it? Has it matured? Have you been trained? Somebody said, well, as missionary Baptists, we're very sovereign. We don't like anybody telling us what to do. I know. Look at the shape we're in right now. Well, I don't like anybody telling us what to do. That's evident. Anecdotally, at least 90%, 97% of the ABA churches in Texas are plateaued or failing. What implications does that have other than those churches failing? Can y'all think about it? As you sat in an air-conditioned room with the electricity on, paid for by the offerings of said churches? If we keep losing churches in the state of Texas, we could lose TBI. Little by little, it won't close overnight, but we'll stop. Won't be able to pay staff. Won't be able to do as many ministries. Baptist Monitor, well, that'll just be in the history cabinet, right? Can't afford to do that anymore. We'll just little by little start shutting ministries down. What about other ministries in Texas? Missions. Texas Mission Builders, Texas Mission Development. They all depend upon healthy churches supporting them. So we're all... Church planting should be faithful, not merely ambitious. I'm not going to say it. I was thinking it, but I'm not going to say it. Sin should include strengthening, and regional multiplication is the strongest when churches plant within reach. Okay? Plant where you can reinforce. Plant where you can reinforce. Again, let me say, this is not the only way to do it. This is not the model, it is a model. But if you have to invest your limited mission funds, shouldn't we study, pray, and structure what we do to get the most bang for the buck, so to speak? Shouldn't we invest in areas that have the most growth? And actually tomorrow, that's what we're going to look at. Did y'all know that if you looked at the state of Texas right now, one side of the state of Texas is growing at 17%. The other side is growing at 39%. Where should we be planting more churches? I'm not saying we avoid the 17, but let's plant some healthy churches in the 39 so that they can grow big enough and then they can send in smaller communities. And it is possible for a church in a small town to be healthy enough to start a church in a metropolis. It is possible to do that. All right? Does anybody have any questions for me?
What time are you going to be over here this afternoon?
Well, you have the pastoral nap after fried chicken, and then I'll be here for the day if anybody wants to meet.
If you have any questions, talk to him some more. He's going to be here every afternoon for a little while.
I'll be here every day until Thursday at 2 o'clock.
Okay?
So,
Talk to him about it.
yeah, and pray for Lifeway Church because we have built the systems, we've refined the systems. We are right now in the phase where we're about to start looking for a church planter that we're going to train, and we've narrowed our location down to 3. So we're going to be church planter, getting them back home in Cuero, and finalizing which of the 3 locations that we've looked at, and I'll more to you tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to keep your attention a little better. Dwayne really built it up, but maybe it'll pay off. Those $5 will pay off tomorrow because we're actually going to be looking at where are the fastest growing corridors in the state of Texas. And you're very close to 2 of them. And I'm very close to 3 of them. Okay? Anybody, anything else?
You mentioned it a couple times, but I never heard a hard or fast definition. What do you define as a healthy church?
A healthy church is one that is experiencing growth. Find a church way spiritually and numerically. Numerically, it's by how many people you're baptizing. Okay? Too many times in America and among missionary Baptists, we trade members with one another. That's not growth. I can tell you that we baptize 3 to 5 people a month. Okay? We're in a town of 8,000. We're not in the metropolis. Okay? But then what are we doing with those wet footsteps out of the baptistry? Are they being discipled? Are they being turned into leaders? And are they being put into ministry? Are they serving in ministry? Are they active in biblical small groups? You know, are they growing? Are they serving in a ministry? See, at our church, when we, in our membership class, we tell people, we don't pray you get involved, we don't hope you serve in a ministry, and we don't hope and pray you're faithful in attendance, and you might find a Bible study group. We expect it of you. You're going to be assigned a deacon who's going to help you experiment and introduce you to small group leaders and introduce you to ministry leaders. And after a month, if you're not in a ministry already, I'm going to personally help you find one. See? Because to be a member of a church is to be an active member of the body. I still have not found the passage of Scripture where God says, be saved, be baptized, and set up on thou blessed assurance. God didn't call you to set on your blessed assurance. He called you to serve. He called you to be active. And when you don't require that of members, they slowly fade away. And then they say, well, I left that church because I didn't get anything out of it, because they didn't put anything in it. And nobody held them to it. And nobody asked them, nobody trained them, nobody showed them, nobody demonstrated it. Okay? So when I say that about ecclesia, what that means is you've got an established discipleship program at your church. You're walking people through that. Everything your church does should be based on two things: evangelism and discipleship. Everything else is gravy. And if you're not doing those two, you shouldn't be doing anything. Okay? Was that gentle enough? Are we still recording? Oh, golly.